the snarling wolf emblem of the road vultures. He loomed over the small corner table like a storm cloud, his shadow swallowing the old man sitting there in the dim glow of the Salty Dog Tavern. Terry Harmon didn't look up. He was 78 years old, with a constellation of liver spots on his hands and a weariness in his bones that had nothing to do with his age. Slowly, he brought a glass of water to his lips, his hands steady. The slight tremor that sometimes plagued him, remnants of old nerve damage from a jungle ambush decades ago, was absent for the moment. He was focused on the condensation trailing down the glass, a tiny cold river cutting through the humid, stale air of the bar. The Salty Dog was a dive in the truest sense. The floor was permanently sticky from spilled drinks and forgotten regrets. The air hung heavy with the cocktail of whiskey, sweat, and cigarette smoke that had seeped into the walls over decades. Neon beer signs in the grimy windows cast a jaundiced, flickering glow on the patrons, mostly locals nursing their sorrows in silence. It was a place for ghosts, and Terry was just another one, hoping to sit with his memories in peace. He'd been coming here for nearly 10 years, ever since the VA doctors told him the pain in his hip and knee would never fully go away. The bar was quiet enough for reflection, far from the noise of the world that had moved on without him. "Hey, I'm talking to you, Grandpa." The biker, his patch-red scab, leaned forward, planting his meaty fists on the table. The scarred wood groaned in protest, a faint crack splintering under the pressure. "This is our place. We don't like strangers, especially not broken-down old ones." He jerked his chin toward the cane leaning against Terry's chair, a simple oak staff worn smooth from years of use. Terry finished his water, setting the glass down with a soft click that echoed faintly in the hush. Only then did he raise his eyes. They were a pale, washed-out blue like faded denim, but they held a depth that was unsettling. Not angry, not fearful, just observant. They took in Scab, the two other bikers who had flanked him like loyal hounds, and the nervous energy rippling through the bar like a current. "I'm not a stranger here," Terry said, his voice a quiet rasp, gravelly from disuse and old smoke. "I've been coming here longer than that vest of yours has been on your back." Scab chuckled, a dry, ugly sound that grated like rusted metal. "Oh, a real comedian. You got a lot of mouth for a guy who looks one strong breeze away from turning to dust." He deliberately knocked Terry's cane with his boot. It clattered to the floor, spinning once before settling in a puddle of spilled beer. "You gonna pick that up, or do you need one of your nurses to help you?" His cronies, patch names Wretch and Grind, laughed, the sound loud and obnoxious in the suddenly quiet bar. The jukebox, which had been crooning a mournful Hank Williams tune about lost love and lonely roads, clicked off mid-note, as if even the machine wanted no part of this. Other patrons hunched deeper over their drinks, gazes fixed on the scuffed tabletops or the bottoms of their glasses. No one met eyes. No one intervened. In places like the Salty Dog, survival meant minding your own. The only person watching openly was Maria, the bartender. Mid-40s with tired eyes and a no-nonsense ponytail streaked with gray, she'd poured drinks here for 15 years. She stood behind the scarred oak bar, polishing a glass with a little too much force, her knuckles white against the rag. Terry was her favorite regular, the quiet one who always tipped well, asked about her son's little league games, and never caused trouble. Seeing him cornered like this twisted something in her gut. Terry bent down. It was a slow, pained movement, a testament to old injuries that never fully healed. His hip protested with a dull, grinding ache like rusted gears. His knee, a road map of surgical scars from shrapnel and Nam, sent a sharp jolt up his thigh. He ignored it. Pain was an old companion, as familiar as the weight of a rucksack or the recoil of an M16. Gripping the smooth, worn wood of the cane's handle, his fingers found their familiar grooves, etched by countless miles. As he straightened, the effort showed. A slight sheen of sweat on his brow, a feint whence he didn't bother hiding. Scab's grin widened, revealing a row of stained, crooked teeth. This was the weakness he'd been probing for, the confirmation of his own superiority. He saw a frail, disabled old man, an easy target for an evening's cruel entertainment. He couldn't see the steel underneath the fragile exterior, the discipline forged in crucibles he couldn't possibly imagine, the suffocating heat of Vietnamese jungles, the biting cold of high-altitude nights in Afghanistan during the early days of the teams, the terror of ambushes where split seconds decided life or death, and the profound, aching loss of brothers left behind in unmarked graves. "See, pathetic," Scab sneered, his voice carrying across the room like a challenge. "You should be at home in your rocking chair, not taking up space in a real man's bar." "This bar is for anyone who wants a quiet drink," Terry stated, his voice even almost conversational. He placed the cane deliberately beside his chair again, the tip tapping once against the floor. He wasn't engaging. He was enduring. He'd endured far worse than the loud-mouthed posturing of a barroom bully. The insults were like stones thrown into an ocean. They made a small splash and were gone. But Scab wasn't used to being ignored. His face flushed redder under the neon, frustration curdling into genuine anger. He needed a reaction, needed to prove his dominance not just to the old man, but to his crew, the bar, the world. His bloodshot eyes fell on Terry's simple, worn red shirt, faded from too many washes. "What are you hiding under that thing, old-timer?" he growled, reaching out with a ham-sized hand. "A bag, a colostomy bag, something to keep the dust from leaking out." His friend snickered, slapping the table. Terry's eyes hardened, just a fraction. A flicker of something cold and dangerous sparked in their blue depths before being extinguished, like a match in the wind. "Don't," Terry said. The word wasn't a plea. It was a command, spoken with an authority that felt utterly out of place from the frail man in the corner. It carried the weight of orders barked in the dead of night, of lives hanging on a single syllable. The quiet command only enraged Scab further. Who was this old fossil to tell him what to do? In a swift, violent motion, he grabbed the front of Terry's shirt with both hands. "I'll do what I want." With a harsh tearing sound, the cheap cotton fabric ripped down the middle. Buttons popped and scattered across the sticky floor like discarded teeth, pinging off boots and chairs. The shirt fell open, exposing the thin, pale chest of an old man, ribs visible under sagging skin, a lattice of old scars crisscrossing like forgotten roads. And something else. On his right bicep, faded by decades of sun, sweat, and age, but still unmistakably clear, was a tattoo. It wasn't a skull, a pin-up girl, or any biker cliché. It was an eagle, wings spread wide in defiant flight, clutching an anchor, a trident, and a flintlock pistol. The Navy SEAL Budweiser, the insignia of the elite, the unbreakable. For a moment the bar was utterly silent. You could hear the hum of the neon, the distant rumble of a semi on Route 4 outside. Scab stared at the ink, brows furrowed in confusion. He didn't recognize the symbol, not fully, but he felt its aura. It was official, authoritative, like a badge from a world of shadows and secrets. It shattered the image he'd built in his head of a weak, pathetic target. As Scab's grimy fingers brushed against the faded tattoo, the stale air of the bar dissolved for Terry. The smell of beer and disinfectant vanished, replaced by salt spray, sweat, and gun oil. The low murmur of patrons faded into the rhythmic thrum of helicopter rotors chopping through humid night air. He wasn't in the salty dog anymore. He was 20 years old, sitting on an overturned ammo crate in a sweltering tent somewhere in the Mekong Delta, 1968. A wiry man with a cigarette dangling from his lips, Chief Petty Officer Ink Malone, was hunched over his arm, a homemade tattoo gun buzzing like an angry hornet. The needle bit like 1,000 tiny stings, fire tracing the pattern into his skin. Terry didn't flinch. He looked at the faces of his teammates around him. Young, hard, immortal. Ramirez with his perpetual grin, Doc Harlan cleaning his M14, LT Kessler sketching mission maps on a napkin. They were all getting the same mark that night after their first successful op. A symbol of brotherhood forged in secrecy, shared hardship, and the kind of trust that meant laying down your life for the man next to you. It was more than ink. It was a covenant, a silent promise that they were part of something bigger, something the outside world would never understand. The price of admission to a very exclusive club, paid not with money but with sweat, blood, and a piece of their souls. Ramirez had died 2 weeks later in a hail of AK fire. Harlan lost a leg to a bouncing Betty. Kessler, well, some ghosts you carried forever. The memory vanished as quickly as it came, leaving an ache of nostalgia sharp as shrapnel. Terry was back in the bar, the torn halves of his shirt hanging loose like surrender flags. Scab was still staring, his drunken mind grinding gears. Then he laughed, a forced, dismissive bark. "What's that? You get that out of a Cracker Jack box, trying to pretend you were some kind of big shot old man?" He poked the tattoo with a grimy finger hard enough to leave a smudge. "You're no soldier, you're just a sad old fart playing make-believe." The public humiliation was complete. Terry's history, his identity, the sacred memory of his fallen brothers, it was all being mocked, degraded by a man who couldn't begin to comprehend its meaning. The bar's silence thickened, heavy as fog. Behind the bar, Maria had seen enough. The torn shirt, the revealed tattoo, the final desecrating poke. It was a line crossed, a sacrilege. Her loyalty to Terry, her quiet, dignified regular who always asked how her son was doing and never caused a lick of trouble, solidified into cold, hard resolve. She remembered the promise. Almost 10 years ago when Terry first started coming in, looking older and more worn than his years, fresh from another surgery, he'd slipped her a small laminated card with a single phone number. "If I'm ever in here and it looks like real trouble," he'd said, voice low, eyes distant, "the kind you can't call local PD for, you call this. Tell them my name, Terry Harmon, that's all." She'd tucked it away under the cash drawer, thinking it was veteran paranoia, stories from the war. Never thought she'd use it. Tonight was different. This wasn't a drunk swing or a spilled beer. This was desecration. Her movements were invisible to the bikers, still focused on their prey like wolves on a lame deer. Maria slipped into the small, cluttered back office, closing the door to a crack. Her hands shook, not with fear but righteous fury. Fumbling in the drawer, her fingers found the cool, smooth edges of the card beneath a stack of crumpled ones. She dialed on her cell. It rang once. "Operations," a man answered. Calm, professional, devoid of emotion, like a machine geared for crisis. "Hello, my name is Maria," she whispered, voice tight with urgency. "I'm at the Salty Dog Tavern on Route 4. I'm calling about Terry Harmon." A fractional pause, not confusion, sudden, intense focus. "Is he okay?" "No, he's not." Tears welled as another burst of laughter echoed from the bar. "Group of bikers, they ripped his shirt, mocking him, the tattoo. Please," he said, "real trouble." "Understood, Maria," the comm now laced with cold steel. "We have your location, help is en route, stay on the line, keep your head down." The line stayed open. Muffled commands in the background. "Harmon, initiate code Trident, active asset under duress. I repeat, active asset under duress. Scramble the QRF, ETA 8 mics." Maria had no idea what code Trident or QRF meant, but she knew she'd lit a fuse. The explosion was coming. Miles away, in the sterile, blue-lit quiet of Naval Special Warfare Command Center in Coronado, Master Chief Petty Officer Ryan Thompson shot up from his desk so fast his chair slammed the wall. The name Terry Harmon hit like an electric shock. Harmon wasn't just a veteran, he was a legend, a ghost. His file, mostly black ink, redacted ops from the birth of the SEALs, plank owner of Team 2 Vietnam era, MACVSOG insertions, Phoenix program ghosts, early GWOT shadows. Men like him built the teams on their backs. Retired, sure. But active asset meant he was still in the fold, quiet protector, mentor to the new generation. Thompson barked orders. "QRF wheels up. Harmon's in play, non-lethal priority but neutralize threats. Move." Back at the Salty Dog, tension coiled like a spring. Scab, emboldened by silence, shoved Terry's shoulder. "Cat got your tongue, hero, or did all that service fry your brain?" Terry stood slowly, cane in hand. No tremor now, his voice was soft thunder. "Son, you've got no idea the fire you're playing with." Wretch lunged to grab him. Grind cracked his knuckles. Then the door exploded open, not figuratively. A flashbang rolled in, popping with blinding light and deafening crack. Smoke filled the room. Black-clad figures poured in, SEALs in civvies, NVGs down, suppressed weapons up. Down, on the ground. Chaos, Scab swung wildly, caught a muzzle to the temple, out cold. Wretch and Grind dropped, zip-tied before they blinked. Thompson burst through the haze, eyes locking on Terry. "Chief Harmon, you good?" Terry nodded, shirt half-buttoned with a spare from Maria. "Told her not to call unless it was bad." It was bad. Thompson's team secured the bar, patrons unharmed, bikers cuffed and groaning. Maria emerged wide-eyed. Who are you people?" Thompson handed her a card. "Friends of a friend, Terry's family." As the team loaded the bikers into unmarked vans, destined for a quiet chat with local PD and a lifetime ban from certain zip codes, Terry sat with Maria. "Kids' games tonight." "One," she whispered, still shaking. He smiled faintly. "Good, tell him Uncle Terry says keep swinging." Outside, under stars that reminded him of night jumps over the Pacific, Terry leaned on his cane. The QRF chopper thrummed overhead, exfiltrating shadows. Legends didn't fade, they endured, and sometimes they reminded the world why. "Sir," Master Chief Ryan Thompson said, pivoting toward the watch commander. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Evans, sharp-eyed, 38, the kind of officer who could read a satellite image like a bedtime story, was already on his feet. The after-action reports he'd been annotating slid from his fingers and scattered across the console. "We have a code, Trident. It's Master Chief Harmon." The ops center went still. The low hum of servers, the soft clack of keyboards, the muted chatter of the night shift, everything stopped, as if someone had yanked the power cord on the world. Every operator in the room, from the grizzled E9s to the 23-year-old Intel analyst still wet behind the ears, knew the name. They had studied Harmon's missions at Bud S. His infiltration routes were case studies. His fireteam maneuvers were literally written into the training manuals. To them, Terry Harmon was what King Arthur was to a knight, myth made flesh, still breathing. Location, Evans snapped, already moving to the central holomap. Civilian establishment. Salty Dog Tavern, Route 4, Thompson relayed, voice steady. Caller is the bartender, Maria, reports physical duress, multiple hostiles, biker gang. Evans' jaw locked so hard the muscle jumped. The thought of Terry Harmon, being manhandled by a pack of weekend warriors was an insult of the highest order. Locals responding. She hasn't called them. Harmon's standing order on that contact number, us first, no spectacle. He's about to get one, Evans said grim, but not the kind he feared. He spun to the comms officer. Patch me to the county sheriff. Tell them a Tier 1 asset is compromised. Naval personnel en route. Establish outer perimeter, do not breach. This is ours. Then to Thompson, QRF. Already rolling to the birds, sir. 5 mics to wheels up. Thompson allowed himself the ghost of a smile. They smelled blood the second the name dropped. Back at the Salty Dog. Scab was running on fumes. Terry's refusal to beg, flinch, or even blink had drained the fun out of the game. The old man just stood there, shirt hanging in tatters, the faded trident exposed like an accusation, gaze steady, ancient, disappointed. Scab needed a finale. He needed to win. "All right, Fossil, you're done." He seized Terry's tattooed arm in a meaty grip. Terry winced, not from pain, but from the indignity of being pawed by a man who'd never carried anything heavier than his own ego. "You're coming with us. Little ride, teach you respect." The threat crystallized. No more words, real danger. Scab hauled, Wretch and Grind moved to block the aisle. Terry let himself be dragged, limp exaggerated, cane abandoned on the floor, eyes locked on Scab, with the weary sadness of a father watching a toddler throw a tantrum. They were 3 steps from the swinging doors when the walls began to vibrate. Not a truck, not thunder. A synchronized, predatory growl, multiple high-performance engines closing fast. Then silence. The front windows blazed white, not red-blue flashers, steady, surgical lead glare. The doors burst open. 3 matte black SUVs, federal plates, no markings, formed a perfect semicircle boxing the entrance. Doors opened in unison. 12 men emerged. No badges, no police. Navy blue ops uniforms, boots bloused, plate carriers cinched tight, suppressed M4s held low ready. They moved like liquid silent, inevitable, fanning into a textbook cordon in under 4 seconds. The road vultures, leather and chrome, suddenly looked like Halloween costumes. Last through the door, Lieutenant Commander Evans. Tall, lean eyes the color of glacier runoff. He didn't glance at the bikers, didn't acknowledge Maria's white-knuckled grip on the bar rag. His gaze swept the room and locked on Terry, still in Scab's grip like a hostage. Evans strode forward, boots silent on the sticky floor, stopped 1 foot from Scab. The biker froze, hands still clamped on Terry's arm. Evans ignored him completely. Heels cracked together, back ramrod. Hand snapped to brow in a salute so sharp it could have drawn blood. "Master Chief Harmon," he said, voice ringing with reverence that filled the room like incense. "Lieutenant Commander Evans, we received the call. Are you all right, sir?" You could have heard sweat bead on Scab's forehead and splat on the floor. His hand dropped as if the arm had turned to molten iron. "Master Chief, sir," his brain short-circuited. Terry raised a weary hand, returned a slow, tired salute. "Fine, Commander, just a misunderstanding." Evans kept eyes on Terry, but his next words were weapons grade. "Master Chief Petty Officer Terrence Harmon. Enlisted 1961, one of the first to complete Bud S. Class 29. MACVSOG, 3 Tour Vietnam. Navy Cross, Tet Offensive. Leg shattered by RPG frag, held a rice batty dike alone for 43 minutes, dragged 4 wounded teammates to the PZ while leaving a trail of his own blood. 2 silver stars, 4 bronze with V3 purple hearts. This man wrote the playbook you study to stay alive. That tattoo you mocked, earned, in places that don't exist on maps, doing things that would make you piss your leathers. To protect the freedoms, you just used to act like fools in a bar. Each citation landed like a hammer on an anvil. Wretch's knees buckled. Grind stared at his boots like they might swallow him. Scab's face drained the color of old dishwater. Maria, behind the bar, was openly weeping, rag forgotten. Evans finally turned to Scab. The look could have frozen nitrogen. You put hands on a living legend. You tore his shirt. You insulted his service. You have no idea the magnitude of your mistake. Silence thick, suffocating. Terry broke it, voice soft, but it commanded the room. The medals, the stories, just things. He tapped the trident. This wasn't for you, it was for them, the ones who didn't come home, a promise to remember. He glanced at his ruined leg, the limp Scab had mocked. For a heartbeat, the bar vanished. Vietnam, 1968. Mud sucking at his boots. Radio man Gutierrez bleeding out, femoral artery nicked. Terry on his back, fibula a splintered ruin, dragging Gutierrez 50 yards through knee-deep water while AK rounds stitched the air. Every pull a white-hot spike. Every heartbeat a countdown. The PZ bird flaring in, door gunner screaming, "Move, move!" Gutierrez lived. Terry's leg never forgave him. The memory faded. Terry's gaze returned to Scab, pity, not hate. Respect isn't beaten out of a man, son. It's given freely, or not at all. Outside, the delayed wail of sheriff's sirens finally arrived. Too late, outclassed. Deputies rolled up to a scene they couldn't process. A dive bar ringed by silent operators, 3 bikers on their knees, and an officer who looked like he ate nails for breakfast. The SEALs didn't touch the vultures. They simply provided statements, concise, devastating. Scab, Wretch, and Grind were cuffed for assault, public intox, terroristic threats. By morning, the Road Vultures National Chapter had excommunicated the entire local charter. Pariahs overnight. Epilogue 3 months later. The salty dog was quieter now. Terry still came for his water, new flannel buttoned high. One afternoon, leaving the tavern, he spotted a lone figure sweeping the grocery lot next door. Scab. Thinner, vest gone, face drawn, eyes hollow. The swagger replaced by the stoop of a man who'd stared into an abyss and blinked. Their eyes met across the asphalt. Scab froze, broom mid-stroke. Fear, then shame, flickered. He gave a short, jerky nod, pathetic, wordless apology. Terry looked at him a long moment, then raised his hand, a slow, deliberate nod in return. Acknowledgement, forgiveness. He climbed into his weathered pickup and drove away, leaving Scab to his broom and his ghosts. Legends don't need revenge. They just keep the promise.